coach. And in fact, he has done a program a couple of weeks before in the same forum. But after that program, we have received a lot of inquiries and discussions about a particular subject which he has dealt with. People have requested him to kind of dwell it little deep into the subject. Okay, let's understand why that kind of euphoria was there about the subject. Okay, the thing is, it is like this. What happens is that a management will always look for reducing the cost of sales, actually selling expenses we call about. Okay, then either they can have a lesser number of manpower or the better output from the manpower. These are two options by which a management can keep the selling cost at check. Okay, of course, the way by getting the better output from the sales team is a positive outlook. Of course, definitely all of us know about this. Okay, but then how do I do that? Even for the salesman, when you go to a customer, according to him, today I go at least second or third week I should get the order. If I'm going to run around for years together to get an order from a customer, it is absolutely, it becomes unhappy and then less motivating and really messed up actually. Okay, so neither the management nor a salesman is happy if he's going to take a long time to realize a business from a customer. Okay, but then we always say customer is like this, market is like this. Customer mentality is like this. There are many reasons we try to put on the customer without thinking about what can I do differently and better. Okay. With this background, what we say is that one has to really go for a proper approach, sales training, wherein you have all the right from preparation to so many other things you do it. So with that preparation, you go to a customer, you may be successful. That's what we have been discussing all these 24 weeks actually. Okay. In the last meeting of MrPrabal Ghosh, he has really made an eye-opener kind of statement wherein what he talked about, there are 4 filters one has to use in the prospecting. I'm sure all of you are aware about the terminology called prospecting. We have something called suspecting and prospecting, okay, which we'll deal with a little later, okay. So when we talked about these 4 filters in the prospecting, okay, if you do those filters rigorously, get filtered and then go to the customer, your success rate becomes phenomenally high, and then you will not have this kind of fear and feeling that no, why should I put lot of efforts and not really getting the output and things like that. Okay, so this particular topic we want to deal deep into today with Mr. Ghosh, and the methodology is like this. I'm going to really kind of quiz him, try to understand from him, and I request all of you to chip in and then keep pushing your questions, either in terms of chat box, or you can even open your audio. It's open. You can open your audio and then ask questions actually. So I really encourage. It is not going to be a 1 hour or 45 minutes monologue from Mr. Ghosh. It's going to be discussions. I will be trying to give him some kind of questions, but I request each one of you to kind of contribute by way of asking questions and clarifying things like that. With these few words, I move on to the subject. Mr. Ghosh, thank you so much again for coming and honoring us and then participating for the second time in this program. Okay. Before we move on, Ghosh,
it's my pleasure to join you and come back again.
We want to clarify between suspect and prospect. I know that we will go for filters discussion a little later, but then there are a lot of confusion in the minds of people about what is suspect and what is. I remember last time we gave an example of police station actually. In fact, I don't know what example you are going to give now. Go on. Please
okay.
Go on.
Now, as you mentioned okay, first of all, good morning, everybody. And I'm really glad to come back to you guys and have this session wherein Ramesh would try and clarify many questions or doubts that was there since my last session that I had with you all. There were many questions, as he's mentioned, that we are going to deal with them today. Now, coming back to this, what is the difference between a suspect and a prospect? And as mentioned just now by Ramesh, I had gave you all an example of a police and a criminal situation. A crime has occurred, but of course, I do not mean, don't take that analogy to heart by stating that, or by just thinking that I am putting the sales process into crime process. No, not that. I just wanted to give you this analogy to make you understand the word suspect, or you can call this as investigation, right? Why suspect or why investigation is that to understand something new, to understand which is not known to you. Because when you talk of any situation or any customer place wherein you are walking into or you plan to walk into for the first time, obviously you would not be knowing many things about the customer. It might so happen, like last time I mentioned, that you might be able to get some information because today's age and time is such that most or many much of most of the information is available on Google or on the platform which is cloud, right? You tend to accumulate such information, but answer honestly that the information, does the information which you collect from the cloud or from Google, does it help you at all to understand what the customer situation is like, what the customer is in, like what is the issues the customer is facing, if at all they are facing? It is not necessary that every time every customer would be facing an issue and then only but then you would be there to give them the solution. No, it's not the case. So it's broadly what we are trying to get at is that if we have to give them a solution with our products or services, we need to first understand where the customer stands or where the customer's organization stands. What is it that they are into? And how is it that our products or solutions are going to fit into his business process or in his needs? So this particular area of fact finding is what we call is as suspecting. Example that I gave last time was police. If they have to find out or pinpoint or get to the actual criminal, actual culprit, has to go about fact finding and connecting the dots, connecting the information to derive or arrive at a particular conclusion that okay, this is the could be possible person, or these could be the possible people, number of people who would be part of this particular crime. Similarly here, you might have a territory, or you might have been given a set of accounts, whatever be the case. You are working in that territory or with that set of accounts to understand where they stand for your products and services to fit into their business process. Mind you, you are getting your product and services into their business process for them or enabling them to earn profit or to enabling them to earn money.
Yeah.
Right. So that is where this is the part of fact finding, what we call is suspecting. You might call it investigation, whatever. But the idea should be, the meaning should be of the act should be this. Okay. Now coming to prospecting. Now, once you have collected enough data wherein you think that you are able to, or you would be able to give your product or services into this organization, but you're not sure whether they would like your product or not. You're not sure whether they would be able to afford your product or not. So such scenario, when you are wanting to be sure that this is going to be the place where your spending of time would be justified by the business that you would get, that particular act is known as prospecting. What you're doing is you're evaluating, you're validating those facts that you have gathered, the data that you have gathered, and validating them and justifying for yourself, creating a checklist, whether further spending time here in this XYZ organization is going to end up or result into a business, then only you would be justified to spend time. Otherwise, it would not be prudent of you to keep on breaking your head or knocking your head on the door. Give me the order. Don't do that.
Okay. So what I understand, Mr. Ghosh, is that once you are clear about the suspect, that means this is the right customer I am worth working with actually, okay. Then comes the prospecting activity happens. In the prospecting, you are already given 4 filters, okay. In fact, I would like you to touch upon the filter before we even well deep into the subject. I got a lot of questions to ask about the filters, but then can you, by your words, kind of tell us the filters?
Okay, then let me show it to them. That will be much better.
Sure.
Yeah.
Then 1 minute.
Can you see this? Right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So these are the 4 filters that I discussed last session. This is a kind of a tool that can be used, you know. Now, when I talk of this using it as a tool this is actually a guideline to a salesperson or a compass for him whether to further delve into the forest or not. Forest meaning when you're talking about B2B sales, it's a maze out there. You need to know what lane or bylanes in the organization that you need to take. Who is going to be the user department? Who is going to evaluate? Who is going to be the technical guy? Who's going to evaluate your product or services, whether they're going to fit into the business? Who are the decision makers out there? Now, if you have been able to identify these, do they have enough fund? Or have they allocated enough fund for such kind of purchases or procurement? So it is actually a flow chart as well as it works as a compass. Now, if you go to the 4th stage also, and there because in each case, there is this factor of yes and no, like a flow chart. If it is yes, then only you are moving on to the next one. If it is no, then you're asking yourself question that what else do I need to find out? What else do I need to do? So again, just to put it in front of you, do I recognize, because that's a sales consultant himself, do I recognize that there is a need? Yes, with my suspecting, with my investigation, with my fact-finding mission, whatever you call it, I have enough data for me to convince myself that yes, there is a possibility of application, the possibility of products and my services fitting into the business process here.
Very important point you mentioned, Mr. Ghosh. Actually, you have to convince yourself first. That's more important. Okay.
That's important.
Yeah. In business, in sales, unless you are convinced yourself, you cannot convince anybody. Okay. So if you
now here, I'd like to interrupt you, Ramesh.
Yeah.
Now, when you talk of convincing yourself with the data, I mean,
exactly.
Not that I see a huge organization in front of me. I'm standing in front of the gate and I see the name, by the name itself, whatever Google I have done research, I see various chemicals or whatever product services that you're using can go in here, and hence I decide that yes, this is my customer. No. That is why what I'm trying to stress at is that just by getting the initial information from Google and standing in front of that geographical organization and seeing the vastness of it, you decide, no, here my product can go. No. That is where the main pitfall of any sales consultants happen. That's what I'm saying, that try and stop yourself from doing it, because you would end up saving a lot of time.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So but the question is that, for example, I know my product can go there. Okay. But what you are saying is, first of all, whether we should know whether customer needs that product. I can say my product can be sold, but then whether customer needs it or not. Okay, that's what you want us to first convince ourselves. That's more important. Very good. The second thing is that what happens is that it is, see, I think it's a little more technical. For example, to convince myself that customer needs this product for some purpose, etc., etc. Okay, possibly you may have a kind of toolbox to kind of fix it. Actually, what are the things need to be done for convincing myself there's a need from the customer's end?
Okay.
Can you
Let me just give you examples of 2-3 different verticals.
yeah.
Okay, so that it makes sense. Now, I'll give it very layman type examples so that something sense is made out of it. If anybody has any question, they can ask again. For example, suppose I am using a Maruti car 800, right? Now, I have been using it for quite some time. Now, I walk into a showroom, and why do I walk into a showroom? Because I am planning to buy or upgrade myself, or I want to buy another car. This has been quite old. Now, when I walk into a showroom, either I walk into a showroom, in this present scenario, COVID scenario, I might call up, right? Now, when I call up, somebody picks up the phone of the showroom. Now, what is it that that person would talk is what I'm trying to get at is in the second one. First one is also there because first and second now gets combined for this person, for this particular case that I'm talking about, is calling up the showroom. Now that person would ask me, which model or which car are you looking for? Suppose I have called up Maruti itself. So I would say that I have been using Maruti for quite some time now. He said, that's great, sir. It's good to hear that. Now, this kind of interaction also gives the customer a kind of confidence. Okay, I have approached the right person. Now, what is it? Which car have you been using? Which model have you been using? Now, when they ask you this question, that is the general question that they ask, right? It is not that I am making it up. That is the question that comes up. Now, when they ask such question that which model have you been using, how long have you been using, what is it that they are getting at? They're trying to gauge what is it that I have present situation, what is my present situation. Now, after I explain to them, they said that what is it that you are looking out for? What is the difference that you are, how different are you looking at for in the next model that you want to purchase? What are the things that you want differently from your existing car? Now, such question when it comes up and when a customer answers, it gives you the customer's mindset as to what all things that he has in mind. Now, initially, if this question is not asked and the salesperson goes rattling out, oh, okay, you have been using Maruti 800. Now we have got very good cars, sir. There is Alto there, there is SFX4, there's the Desire, and then he keeps on rattling, tuck, 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 tuck. This has got this feature, this has got this feature, this has got AC, this has got that, and blah, 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 blah. What happens? Now, I have given you two situations. One is the person who has picked up the phone has asked me certain questions. And on the other hand, there's another person who has picked up the phone and only knowing that I am using Maruti 800, I want to buy another car, I want to upgrade myself, and went on rattling with all the models available presently on the higher side of Maruti. If I have to upgrade from Maruti 800, what are the other things? Now, which approach do you think is the correct one?
Yeah, you are right. Actually, Ghosh, it is like this. What happens is that One is based on this, the data collection, the suspect level, we come to know that what is the customer's background, etc., etc. Okay, and then visualize clearly whether my product is required for the customer. That's what the need. What you said is that once that first level, if it is no, then you should not even go to the customer. Okay. If it is yes, only you go to the customer. That means if your product is required, for example, I can give a close home example in the textile industry. Okay, when you go to the customer, you talk to the customer whether they are doing for export or local, and then if that basic information, if you are not aware, if that what is the quality requirement they need, we are not aware, you may possibly give them the high engineered product at higher price, which will not be required for them. You end up spending time like anything, keep on talking to them, convincing them. Eventually, nothing is going to happen. You will put the blame that customer is too micy, too price sensitive, too price conscious, doesn't want to buy. The fact of the matter is that customer is not clear, or he doesn't want that kind of high engineered product for him because his need is not like that actually. Okay, so unless I'm clear about the need, what the customer wants, I should not pursue phase two. The phase two is to convince the customer, to make him to understand the need itself actually. Okay, this is a very interesting thing.
No, here, Ramesh, a slight correction. I am not convincing the customer, first of all.
Yeah, sure.
Second stage, I am not convincing the customer at the moment.
Yeah.
Just to build on the textile industry that you just now gave an example of, it is very important for me as a sales consultant to understand the industry as a whole. Textile industry, how does it function? Now, in textile industry, we all know that each and every organization, they take out products on the grade basis. Meaning there are some quality differences. That is how they have got the same looks kind of a cloth, but at a different price. They would talk about the weaving, they would talk about the texture, they will talk about the smoothness, they will talk about the airiness, and all that factors are there. Now, when I say this, as just to build on what you just now said, Ramesh, is that first of all, whether it is domestic or international. So one is I need to understand or know the industry as a whole. How does it function? That people do have categories of product or categories, or they categorize their deliverable into various grades, into various quality groups, and hence they price it accordingly. So if a particular quality is to be achieved or derived, a particular kind of chemical or a particular kind of color or a particular kind of weaving texture is going to be used. The threads or the whatever material that they're using. Now, here is one thing, that when I know about this industry, first of all, and then when I go and meet up with XYZ organization, wherein that would actually, I would be able to make sense if they say that my business is 40% domestic, 60% international exports. Now, when they talk of exports or in domestic, I would be able to gauge what they are talking about. If I'm not knowing first, because this is very important here, Ramesh. Now, when they say that and when they start explaining, I need to, if they're talking about domestic, they have an issue. As I said, in the first filter, that I am doing a lot of data digging, data finding, suspecting. So once I have done that, then only I'm sitting here with the customer, understanding further what could be the possible issues, or is there any issue in the business process, meeting those requirement of the customer in terms of quality or the grades, whether it is export or domestic. Yeah. Now, depending if they talk about, okay, yeah, I would prefer to have, I have got a lot of competition. So for example, an organization is saying, XYZ textile organization is saying, yeah, of late, what I have seen is that, this European market that I have been sending, my volumes are, coming down. And then when I analyzed, I found that the competition has started coming up from countries like Vietnam or from Philippines. If such kind of discussion happens, what is it that your consultant needs to do? A consultant then has to ask, what is it that they are doing differently that you are not doing? And hence they are gaining on your pie or your share. Now, this particular kind of conversation can only happen when I, as a consultant, am fully aware of the market, fully aware of the industry, how it functions. Now, once the question has been asked, that what would the customer say? They can say many things, but one thing, if they say that, okay, I think that they are they are claiming to give better quality, or they're claiming to get better quality from Vietnam or Philippines. So, sir, when you say quality, better quality, how are they being able to do it? So then again, the question, when you are put in, the customer might say, yeah, I have to check it out, but be the raw materials, the various raw materials that we use to get the end product. What is happening inside? You are getting very happy because you know that your product or services is one of those raw materials that he's talking about. But don't get very excited right at the moment. So here is the point. When he says about raw materials, can you then ask that customer the question, are you open to check out other raw materials that you are using presently to evaluate whether you can get better raw materials? Now, what happens here, the customer, when the customer is answering it, yes, I am open to evaluate other raw materials than the one that I'm presently using. Ramesh, this is the filter that I'm talking about. This is
Absolutely.
the second filter that has got answered in yes. Does the customer recognize that there is a need?
Exactly. So Ghosh is very, very clear. Unless you do the suspect process properly, you will not understand about the customer and the
Absolutely.
need for your product. Okay. Then second, you have to recognize the need of the customer for your product. Then only step into the customer to even meet the customer and talk actually. Okay.
Yes.
Then if I know that the product is required, but customer may not know that, or he may not be convinced, for example, then how to make him convincing? That's where your questioning and listening techniques are used. Okay. The funneling questions are used. Okay. The probing questions are used.
Yes.
By way of doing that, you kind of probe into their mind, and then unconsciously they will try to open up and tell you that yes, I need example. Okay. So
Absolutely.
you have
Absolutely.
to peacefully, patiently bring them to that point, saying, make them feel that they need this point actually. Okay.
Yes.
Then only the actual business starts, actual discussion starts,
Exactly.
negotiation starts, all those things. Actually, I fully agree with you actually. Okay. Yeah.
Because at times, there would be point where he has revealed it already. But my suggestion to all the consultants would be this, that please control your excitement. Hold it till the last moment wherein you think that you have got all the information and totally customer is
Convinced.
absolutely,
Absolutely.
all ears to hear your solution, is eager rather.
I fully agree with you, because what happens if you are jumping the gun a little faster, what typically
Absolutely.
happens is customer is half convinced, okay, and then it will result in the price pressure actually. You will put the pressure on the price.
Yeah.
If he is not,
Yes, here
if
you
he is
are.
fully convinced, then price is a walkover actually, right?
Fall that we get into.
Exactly.
You are absolutely right.
Exactly.
And then we come back to our bosses and tell them, boss, see, they are getting at so and so price. We are so much 10%, 15%, or 20% higher than the present one that they're using. Boss, we have to give discount. This is the pitfall that we get into.
Absolutely. So the major job of a salesperson is to make the customer convince himself that there is a need for your offering. That's a major and major and major.
It is, you will not convince, mind you,
I said
that is
convince
what
himself.
we need to.
Convince himself.
Your question should be such that the customer himself or herself says that there is an issue.
Absolutely.
And open to look forward to new solutions.
Okay. So once
you have to make the customer say that.
Exactly. Once the second filter is done, now I'm very curious to know about this man. What is his man, Mr. Ghosh?
Okay.
About this man?
Oh, last time also I mentioned this full form is money, authority, and need. Okay. Now, like when you are doing a B2B sales, or for that matter, many participants here would have handled or used handling accounts. They are known as account managers. Now, in such scenarios, we always talk of one important group or an individual. We have got various types of buyers. That is to be discussed in some other session. Yeah. Like those buyers are like economic buyers, technical buyer, user buyer, like that. Now, when we talk of this economic buyer is the one or the group of people, one individual or group of people who has been authorized by the management to decide for any such procurement or to spend money, evaluate and spend money, because this money is not their own.
Absolutely.
So when we talk of man authority and money authority and need, is that group of people or an individual, who has been authorized to spend that money, decide that money to be spent, has the authority to decide which product or services to be bought, and is authorized also to evaluate that the need that has come forward is actually there or not, is required or not, or can the present system do without purchasing a new one. So this group of people or an individual, what he is doing is, he has got the full power to say no or yes to your order.
I think fully on board, Ghosh. Actually, it is like this. We talk it as actually power mapping, or the decision making matrix, or whatever names nomenclature we give it. Okay,
You can give any name.
Yeah, one thing is that in the suspecting level only, one will possibly get to know that who is the patient maker, who is all this thing. Okay, but here possibly I understand is this way. For example, CEO can be a decision maker, CFO can be a one who has got the authority for money. Okay, but then the user is the one who will really know the need of this product. For example, okay, the CEO may not know.
The user would be knowing it. User might have put forward the requirement.
Exactly.
Okay.
So here
now,
what you are, yeah, please go ahead. Please.
Now, it might so happen, user might say it, but the CFO or the CEO might cut it down.
Exactly. So
now, what do we do then?
Yeah, you need to be clear about, who is the user, who is the CFO, who is the CEO, what is their level of power in that organization, and then what is their
who all, basically Ramesh, who all are the party to the decision making.
Absolutely.
Need to identify that, and then go with the same process that we were doing in the filter one to make them understand or make them say themselves, yes, your product and services are going to help my business process.
Okay, fantastic. I think I got still further questions, Ghosh, but then before I move on, possibly I will ask the audience to shoot out the questions, because naturally, as I mentioned, that I will not overstep the time today. So can anyone wants to open, you can open your audio and ask questions if it is there. Please go ahead before I move on to next chapter. I encourage all of you, if you can, If you want to ask questions, please open up and ask. I hope I'm audible to people. I don't know. I hope I'm audible to everybody. I'm telling people that
Can you, is Ramesh audible to all of you? You just can type Y on the chat.
yes. So if you, okay, fine, thank you. If any of you have got any questions, please you can open up right away. Because I don't want to complete this and then go for question answers, because sometimes the mood of mood of the person will change actually. Okay, so it's a very important chapter we are dealing with, wherein to cut short and improvise the time of commercialization of the business. A person has to first of all understand clearly what is his need of the product. He has to convince himself and then convince not convince the customer, help the customer to convince himself about why this kind of need is required, and then of course understand the power mapping there, who is a user, who is a the decision maker, who is a finance and things like that. So up to this level we have covered just now. So we are, before we move on to the last point, last filter, for example. Okay, if you have any questions, please. Okay, I think Ghosh, actually what I'm saying is that now it's very clear for me that unless you are convinced about the need, you should not go to the customer. Then once you are convinced, then you have to take all the necessary steps to convince. Of course, next later date we are going to bring in this kind of tools to how to do it. Okay, but then we are only talking about what to do it. Okay, then convince the customer, that make the customer get convinced that we need this point is required, etc. Okay, then we talk about the who is the person really is having a pain to use this product, and then things like that. Okay, then what next? Once I'm on the third filter also is yes, then what next?
So what is the fourth one that is mentioned here? Does the organization have adequate finance to acquire our product and services? Simple. It is, look at it. Every organization has their own set profiteering or percentage decided, right? Now, and they are also very comfortable in terms of the bracket that they are into. Many a times they would decide that, okay, this is where this much is what I am going to spend this year, this next financial year. For example, just to mention about this textile only that you had been talking about.
Yeah.
Now, for example, this textile industry, your supplying of chemicals out there, it's all based on, first of all, evaluation by the organization, right? And then after evaluating various suppliers and their products accordingly, they decide on a particular product or of a particular organization, and they sign a contract. It might be a 1-year contract, or it might be 2 years or 3 years, right? Correct me wherever I'm going wrong.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So now, for example, this is the month of October, right? Now, you have entered an organization wherein you have not gone there before. You have done your all those activities, suspecting and all those. You have now on the fourth filter. Here, while doing this, it is not that each and every filter when I'm arriving at that I'm doing that activity. No. All this activity to decide on the filters, the data is coming to you right from the beginning at the
Correct.
suspecting stage.
Correct.
Now, what you're doing is at each stage, you are collating the related data that you have already collected and then validating it and then qualifying it. It is not that I'm going to go and collect data now.
Yeah. Okay.
So let there be no confusion. Whatever data, and data collection does not stop. First of all, maximum data possible you have to collect at the beginning, and then only you are moving into this stage of prospect validation. Okay, one. Second is, while you are validating each level, you are also privy to various data, new data. new insights. Please keep on capturing it. You don't know what is going to help you when. So data collection is an ongoing process. Let that be very, very clear. There's no confusion on that. Coming to this fourth filter. So when you have done that, coming back to the example that the contract is there this month of October, I'm entering that organization and I'm at the fourth filter stage, and I find that the present contract that is on is 10 rupees per unit. And the volume is 10,000 units per month, which is already signed till one financial year, meaning till 31st March 2021. And yet you have been able to understand that there is an issue. That is why you are today standing in front of the fourth filter.
Right.
There is an issue. Customer recognizes that issue, and you have been able to identify the decision makers. Means they are in the process of evaluation.
Right.
So that is why you are there on the fourth stage. Meaning, again, that what is the now? How do I go about convincing, or if your price, say, for example, with the volume, kind of volume, you know that you can price your unit not less than 13 rupees per unit. Your MRP is 15 rupees per unit. But because of the volume, you can come down to 13 maximum. So there is still a difference of 3 rupees, meaning 30%. Right? So how do you go and justify that? So here is your activity of understanding whether they are going to go in, and how do they do that? What is the intensity of the issue that they have on hand? How are they getting affected by that issue? You need to evaluate that.
Yeah.
So moment you have evaluated how big is the issue, and you have converted that issue is terms of monetary loss, which is being perceived, mind you, by your customer. Only when you are able to do that, you will be able to justify that 30% or whatever percentage hike it is there from the unit. Now, with that, here, when you are speaking with the customer, have you been able to, make it so big and concerning to them so that they are able to arrange for the finances, even if it is extra? They might divert the budget, they might divert funds from some other fund to this procurement for your product, looking at that the issue that they have in hand is so big and it can be addressed so that they can benefit instead of loss. They can benefit and they can make profits.
I think, Mr. Ghosh, let me kind of explain this with an example, what I think, which may just validate me whether it is the right thing. Okay, what do you mean by this last filter? What happens is that when we go to the customer I am convinced there's a need for the customer, every customer will say, I want the best. Okay, for example, he wants to get the best fastest, let's say. Okay, an example. And then I am convinced, and he is also convinced that he has to get the best quality results, for example. Okay. And then I also clear about who is a person who we deal with, CFO, etc., etc.
Right. Yeah.
Then I go and offer them the price. Okay. That is where the real each comes. Okay. So my price is, let's say, 100 rupees. Okay. But then for the cost calculation of the customer to suit his end selling price, okay, he cannot pay anything more than 50 rupees for the particular point. Okay. So even though my product is very good, it solves all his problems. Okay. He is convinced also. But naturally, because he cannot simply change the entire economics of his business, okay, overnight, for example. Okay, so that means, according to him, this product, he cannot, by possibly 50 can become 10% more, 15% more he can pay. He cannot pay double the price, for example. Okay. So what actually happens is that is what I understand with this adequate finance. What you mean is that, okay, do the pricing of a product fit to their cost calculation? Cost calculation can be due to various reasons actually within their internal thing. For example, it can be that price what they get for the end product or the.
See, please don't get into the cost calculation of their end product. That is not your job.
Yeah.
You need to understand one thing, that the business process, of course, you need to understand. Of course, you need to know the product pricing of that they have, because that is also one of the concern areas. And you as a sales consultant have to address that concern area that the customer has. But on the other side, there are various factors to pricing a product.
Absolutely.
Right? Now,
Absolutely.
that in nitty-gritty you cannot get into.
Absolutely.
If he is giving you an example that my end product price would go up double because your costing of the particular raw material, which instead of X, if I buy it from you, it will be double the price. Now, that is the reason why I said that during this whole process, you have to keep on evaluating the magnitude of the issue that the customer has presently on hand. And that magnitude has to be monetarily converted. Meaning that if I am having an issue and if my product is, say, for the customer's end product is priced at 150 rupees and is only making a volume of, say, 1,000 per month, what is happening is, I just now gave an example of another export where he's losing volumes to either Philippines or Vietnam. Now, if that volume is coming down from 1,000 to say 500 per month, or say 750 per month, what is the monetary loss that he is having? You then need to, because if the customer puts you into that pit, then you need to have enough data with you to analyze this, that what is the actual loss that he is having without using your product, one, which you are convincing that by using your product, you or customer would be able to match up or better the quality of Philippines or Vietnam, might be able to retain that 1,000 units per month, and also increase it in other countries giving the reference. So there is a whole lot of gamut which we work on. So my point here is to keep it very simple, that does the customer have the adequate finances to buy my product or services? Like I gave an example of the car purchases. Now in that Maruti stable, there are cars from 2,50,000 to 15 lakh rupees. Now, I can think of many things that I want. I might think of a sunroof. I might think of 6 airbags. I might think of 8 surround system speakers. I might think of those environment lighting and all that, blah 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 blah, or Bluetooth or infotainment and all that. But do I have that kind of pocket weight to get that? That is more important to understand. Because if I do not have, then I would be rather going to get that kind of a car which I am able to shell out money for. Because shelling out money today is either directly cash down or it will be through EMIs. On EMI also, if the bank does not think that I am capable of having a 15 lakh of loan, the bank would not give me a loan. Hence, the EMI would not happen. So that I need as a consultant to highlight it to the customer in such a way that it does not hurt the ego of the customer. Yet, I need to find out whether he has the adequate finances. That is the reason, if you remember, last time also might be I had given an example of Arrow showroom. Let me quickly just give you a very quick example of Arrow showroom. How do they get at this adequate finances? Arrow showroom, when it opened up 25, 30 years back, today you get it in the supermarkets and hypermarkets. Now, they had individual showrooms like Raymond's. Okay. Now, what happened was, that they had a very well-trained sales team, whether be it a girl or a boy, the counter girls or boys. The moment you enter the showroom, there would be this person, namaste, or whichever geography that they are in, they would greet the customer and welcome the customer. So please come in. And while walking with them, they would ask immediately, the question is come, how may I help you? Here, the customer has walked in, mind you. On the other case, in your case, I'm just giving an example, small example. In your case, it is you who would be walking in as a sales consultant, or you would be doing it. But just think of the questioning, which I'm going to share with you now. May I help you? Yes. Either the customer would say yes and be quiet, or he would say, yes, I'm looking out for a shirt or a trouser. Arrow is either shirt or a trouser or a, at that point of time, it was not a blazers had not come in then. Fine. So if you're talking about shirt, immediately the next question would come forward is, are you looking for a professional or a casual wear? You answered it professional. Good, sir. And they will direct you while speaking, and whatever you are speaking out, accordingly, they are directing you towards the product. Now, they would ask, are you looking for plain, checks, or stripes? Whatever you mention, if you mention plain, they will straightway take you to the plain one. If you mention stripes or checks, they would ask you whether it is wider stripes or finer stripes, or if it is wider checks or finer checks. Whatever you answer, that is the one they will take you finally to that area, and they would then ask you. The second last question is, they would ask you, at that point in time, it is my own experience, I'm saying, and I was very impressed. They would ask you, what is your collar size? Moment you mention your collar size, that these are the finer checks, and this is the collar size. But if you don't mind, sir, what is the range that you're looking out for? And smilingly, they ask you this. What happens? They have done that. They are in the fourth filter. What is the range that you're looking out for? The moment you mention the range, they immediately direct you. This is the place where you are. So now look at it. They had walked along with you, side by side with you, and they have directed you to the right place, and they have used the last filter also at the last moment.
Yes.
That is what it is.
Yes.
A sales consultant does.
Yes. I think we have kind of covered, Mr. Ghosh. Actually, what you mentioned is that after the suspect discussions, then clearly understand the need of the customer for your product, and then of course work with the customer to make him realize there is a need for your product. Okay. But even till that moment, actually, customer may say, yes, I need this product. Okay. But then he may not be clear about whether it is going to fit into his cost. When I say cost, don't get confused. I'm talking about his price range or whatever name you call it. Actually, it is going to fit into that. Okay. But he may still see what we have seen many times. What happens, the customer will do everything, trial, everything will be done. Finally, when you go and sit for the discussion, he will say, give me half the price. Okay. Example. So in order to avoid this trap, we generally put this a little before. When in this stage 2 itself, we try to give him the idea about the price, for example. Okay, we will not simply tell him that. So the need solution.
Here I would just correct a bit. Here I would say that never talk about the price. I would just suggest, never talk about the price even at the second stage. Keep on evaluating and building onto his concern areas. Keep on building that concern area. The bigger the concern area you are able to build, the bigger the monetary conversion you can do. I tell you, I can guarantee you on this. Usually you don't get guarantees these days, in any product. But with this tool, I can guarantee you, with kind of extrapolation that you would do with the concern area and convert it into monetary value, you would be able to handle that objection on the price 80% times.
Absolutely. Very nice. So I think
actually, Ramesh, this whole process Today, we are just doing it in 1 hour time, or so the second session that I'm doing it today. This actually is done, in a role play scenario, wherein to make them understand, to make the consultants understand. So it is very, very, very intriguing tool, yet very, very helpful, and it has been there for ages. It has only evolved with time. This tool has evolved with time.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So I got your point, Ghosh. It is like this. Today we are still talking about what we will be doing in these filters. Okay. How we will be doing the filters will involves about your tools, etc., etc. It will be a full-fledged training program. Possibly we will organize it little later. Okay.
Right.
I am really thankful to you for having come again, redone this whole filter activities.
My
Okay.
pleasure.
Just to make a final point before I open the house for the questions. Okay. One has to be clear about whether the customer need the product. If not, do not trust any product to the customer. Clear. Second, when you go to the customer, not necessarily if you convince that he is going to be convinced, not the case. You have to put a lot of efforts to make the customer realize that you need this product is required for his purpose. Okay. After that, you have to be clear about who is the decision maker, who is actually going to use, who is got a finance, etc., etc. Third filter. Okay. Then importantly, this product or this particular problem solving, whatever, okay, is going to fit into that bill that has to be clear about. Okay. Then only you start really sitting and negotiating and finalizing, etc.
Absolutely. Those are later stages.
Later stage, okay. So
Yeah.
this is what is the prospect filtering. I understand. So I'm really excited with this filter mechanism, Mr. Ghosh. I open the floor. Any question from your side? Please go ahead. You can even type out the chat box, or you can open you can unmute your audio and ask questions. Any questions? I know this is a very intense subject. Actually, each filter, we have to do a lot of activities to get past the filter. But what Mr. Ghosh says, the filter one, if it is no, do not even proceed to the filter two. Very clear.
See,
If
this filter,
no,
this tool is not just only to get you the business,
yeah,
not,
Ganesan,
not just only to understand whether the customer is going to buy or not. It is also for yourself, time
absolutely.
management. It helps you in time management. It helps you to get
Okay,
on with your business in the right direction, not wasting
okay,
time.
okay. There's a question from Ganesan. Ganesan, please go ahead. Unmute your audio. You can talk. You can ask question. Ganesan. Ganesan, just put the hand. Ganesan, are you audible? Not able to unmute. Okay, 1 minute. Okay, okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please do it now. Please, you can do it now.
Yes, sir. Now I can mute.
Yeah.
Sir, when you are saying about this suspecting and in that topic, when visiting a customer, we used to, as you said, Google mein jaake we used to see what is his work or what is he is into actually. But in reality, when we go there, something which he is doing in the innovation part, how can we get connect to him to understand, okay, existing products, he is in need of an alternate or something, but at the same time what new requirement he is looking for, that how to touch upon, sir, because that is always a subject which comes in the last, saying that we try to go on speak about that we have this product, that product, but what new he wants, how to because that is a sensitive part, that he is trying to innovate something in his as a before market launching in the market. So how can we touch upon that, sir?
Yeah. You unmute. Mr. Ghosh, your thing is muted actually. Just unmute your audio.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
Ganeshan. The thing is, you just now mentioned, I mentioned also earlier that you are not going to any organization only basis your finding on the Google. Google only is the initial stage for you to get the data. As you said, once you move, that data is to that extent to convince you to go further. One. Second is, once you move into the customer's place, that is where the fact finding happens. Now, if you see that you are not being, and it is good that you said just now that existing product is one, existing deliverables are one, but now that customer is into innovation. Now it is good for you that you have found out, walking into the customer place with your initial information that you have gathered from Google. Google, every time, remember one thing, whether it is Google or any other place, even for that matter, if you have collected data of your customer from any other department, collecting data can happen from the gate itself, from the security guards of that organization, to the Google, to the CEO, to anybody. But remember, whatever data, first-hand data that you get, it cannot be sacrosanct at the first time. You, each and every data that you get, you have to validate that data. Absolutely. Whether it is right or wrong. That is one. Coming to your innovation, how do I get to know? Now, every innovation that any organization does is a very, very secretive approach, right? Please. If you want to be part of that that innovation stream, first of all, you need to build the trust. How do you build the trust? The way you move around with the customer, the way you move around in the customer's place, the way you find the data, and if the way you try to address if there is any issue with the existing system, when the way you do it, the way the questioning you do it, the collection of data that you do it, and the analysis that you do it, that would only create trust in the customer's mind.
Absolutely.
If you jump on the wagon and start blabbering out, as I talked about the example of the car one, that I have got this can do this, this can do this, this can do this. No. Because remember one thing, I'm going to use a word that you guys might not like it. No. There is a difference between a hawker and a sales consultant. Are you getting me? There is a difference between a hawker and a sales consultant.
Okay, sir.
Understood. Hawker keeps on saying, this, I've got 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 this price, this price, this price. But we are not hawkers. They're also selling products. But we are sales consultants who needs to understand the customer first before giving the product.
Very nice, very nice.
Even if at the first, sorry?
I said very nice, put the example.
so the point here is that we need to, even if it is innovation, mind you guys, you just cannot jump on the wagon and say that I'm going to be part of this innovation project that you have. Prior to that, there is a lot of activity that you need to do, and you need to create the trust. That is what we talked about last time also very briefly on rapport building.
Right. Absolutely.
That's absolutely.
There's a question from Vinod Kumar. You can read, you can also read from the chat box. Sometimes customer is a bit confused. It takes long time to get real requirement. Is there any tool reducing information collection time from the customer?
Long time to get real requirement. Is there any tool reducing information collection time?
I think what I understand. Yeah, please go ahead, Ghosh.
Okay. Yes, the customer is confused. The point here is how, as a sales consultant, you are willing to ask many questions. Why the customer is confused? Obviously. Why the patient, when the patient goes to a doctor, if the patient would have known everything that is he or she is going through, then doctor's role would have been very, very less. The doctors are there. What do the doctors do? They do ask symptoms. And then they do the diagnosis. So if I'm getting a stomach ache can be for multiple reasons. So if I'm getting a stomach ache, I might just go in and get a NO pouch, pour it into a glass of water and take it, thinking that it is a gastric problem. It might not be so. You are right. So what is the role of the doctor here? That is you. If the customer is confused, first you need to cool the customer down. Second is, again, going back to the suspecting stage. Have you missed out on something?
Exactly.
Your data collection is more important here.
Exactly.
Please do not mention that reducing information collection. No, you cannot reduce your information collection, my dear. All the more reason that you need to collect information, because that is going to be your tool, your weapon for a confused customer to direct him to the right point.
Yeah, Vinod Kumar, at least Ghosh, actually, I take the liberty of commenting on this. I will be more happy to do that. Vinod Kumar, actually, when the customer is confused, ask yourself, are you confused or are you clear? Okay. More and more you are clear, customer will not be confused. Very clear. End of the day, I keep saying again and again, don't blame the customer. When he is confused, just ask. That's what exactly.
It is your duty to bring the customer from the confused state to a clear state. And
do that.
Only do that when you have got enough data with you.
So more and more you are clear. See, it's like this. There is a customer who is confused customer. How do you handle him? You have to be more and more and more and more clearer. Then you can easily handle the confused customer. Very clear. This is a basic rule that more the confusion of the customer, more should be cleared by you, of yourself actually.
And it is actually, if more confused it is actually a very good sign, mind you.
Exactly.
It's a very good sign. If the confusion is getting reflected in your presence, meaning this is the first step that the customer is starting to build a trust on you.
Fantastic. Very good. Very good.
Okay, right.
Any other questions? Okay, there is a question. You can read that box.
Yeah. What if there is no issue with the existing source of the customer and my price is higher than his existing source? Then how to proceed ahead? Please don't proceed. Yeah, don't waste your time.
Why the purchaser is discussing.
If your source, the first statement that you have made, Ashutosh, that what if there is no issue? If there is no issue, why do you want to get in there? Use some other customer, yeah, go to some other customer. I know it is a pressure of the business and the pressure of the meeting the target. But here, that is the reason what I am saying is data collection is so important and the filters are so important that I need to then move on and get on with some other customer. Because moment you try to push your product here where there is no issue, you would rather lose a trust. You will then become a hawker instead of a sales consultant.
Yeah, I think Mr. Ghosh has made a sarcastic statement. Yes, you have to move to another customer. Don't waste your time. But before that, you must be clear about why the customer is not having any issue. Okay, for which you have to understand the customer deeper and deeper and deeper, so that you can see. Let's be very clear. Nobody in the world is sitting without any problem. Each one of us, every customer will have something, or it can be he wants to improve the quality, he wants to improve the cost. For example, why the purchaser asks for a lower price? Because he wants to improve the cost of the point, for example, or his end point. Okay, so that itself is the issue and the problem. Okay, so unless you are clear about the issue, you cannot approach. That's what Ghosh said. Go to somebody else. Okay, but before going to some other customer, you have to be clear about whether really customer is not having any problem or not.
That is absolutely given, because that is the reason for the data collection.
Exactly.
That is why we are harping since the last session that data collection, suspecting stage or the investigating stage, fact finding is so very important. Now you see what is happening is you guys are helping me to validate my point of the importance of data collection.
Exactly.
The question that Vinod put in, or the question that Ashutosh put in, it is basically again reiterating and validating my point, the importance of data collection.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Any other questions? We are running a little late. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah. Very information interesting. Thank you for both valuable. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? It will be very exciting. It was an exciting session, Mr. Ghosh. Actually, really, as I said, that we look forward to have a full-fledged training program on these filters. Actually,
Right.
we will possibly organize sooner, and I hope people will be more interested to participate and then learn out of this. Anyway, today, as is, we will kind of call it a day. And thank you so much. Thanks everybody for coming and.
Welcome, my pleasure. Thanks.
And I hope it was interesting, and hope to see you in the next sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.